Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Miss Simran. Good evening, Garv. Good evening, Nishari. Nice. Okay. We have come to value of supply. The slide should be time of supply. Good evening, Vishaka Goel. Yeah. So you are seeing the slide on time of supply now. Good evening, Soumya. Happy evening, Gayatri. Nice. Good to see you all. We can start the session. So today we are discussing on time of supply and value of supply. So we know we have discussed in the previous session the importance of chapter supply. What is supply? When is it supply? When it is not a supply? How much is the rate of tax to be paid? What are the ingredients of supply? Correct? So today we'll be discussing when should you pay taxes? Because we know that taxes has to be paid, but when should that be paid? That is what we will discuss today in the topic of time of supply. And then we will also discuss on what value you have to pay GST, right? Some people sell some products at a different rate. If you go, they may give you at a concessional rate because you're a student. I am not a student. They may charge me extra price for it. So when there is differential pricing on what value should they pay the GST is what we will discuss in the topic post the break on value of supply. Now we will discuss first half what is the time of supply. Okay. So before we can start, let's see how do you achieve success in the exams. This is a thing which many students ask me. How do I achieve success in the exam? Because that is my goal. Correct. Every student's goal is to achieve in the success in the exams, do their best. Okay. So how do you do this? This again three simple things. First and very important is believe in yourself. Any belief system is making anything and everything possible. So you have to believe in yourself. How do you do that? By maintaining a positive mindset and being confident. Because this belief system is what drives many people. Now, if you would have seen, I'll just tell you a small anecdote. If you would have seen a big elephant, right? Now, elephant is so huge, it can just stampede, or jump on somebody, or it can crush somebody. But still, if you see, how is the elephant tied? Do they like put it in a cage or something like how they put it in a tiger? Elephant is never in a tiger, never in a cage. It is in an open space. And how is it tied? How is it tied? Any idea? Is it tied with very, very ropes? Because ropes are not sufficient. It is so very mighty. So how do they control the movement of an elephant? So it's tied with a chain in its leg, and it is attached to a small metal piece, because, sorry, in that metal piece, if the elephant wants, right, with such a the elephant, when it's tied with a metal chain, but with a metal piece which is just beaten up on the soil, on the ground. By one strike, it can just lift it and the metal can come out and it can just run away, it can escape. But it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that at all because it believes that it is tied to a metal piece. Now, this belief, how did it come? When it was a small baby calf, elephant, when it was a small baby calf, small elephant, that time it was very weak. And at that time itself, its leg was tied with a chain to a metal piece. That time it tried hard because when it was small and very young, it had a lot of things to do. It used to wanted to jump, but the metal piece tied never allowed it to jump. So when it is big, also that same metal piece is tied, a metal chain is tied. So it knows that yes, it has believed in itself that when I was a young, small elephant, I couldn't move because this chain, when I tried, it did not allow me to go out. It always used to stop me. So it believes that when I'm big, also the chain will not allow me. So it's that is a belief which is set in its mind. So that belief system is created when it was there. Now we have to create a belief system in ourselves that yes, we can do it. If we can do it, then definitely it's possible. There's one question which a student is saying, can we clear score 50 in GST? Definitely you can score, because it is not a very cumbersome topic. It is doable topic. So you have to believe in yourself that yes, you can score 50 in GST, then you will do it. Second, what you have to do is be consistent. This is where most of us lack as students, that we study one subject, we have interest in that, but the same interest is not there in any other subject. Be always consistent, follow the routine till your exams get over. Again, to be consistent, you have to leave away these distractions. You have to work hard and be consistent in attending classes, doing self study, and practicing questions. If you have already attended classes, then this revision classes should be like a precursor for you. It's like should be like a break, so that from your studying also you have a break in terms of somebody else talking and you're using your brain very minimal. That also is a rest for your brain. So be consistent. Whatever you're doing, self study, do it continuously on regular basis. How do you do that? Set a calendar. Create your own calendar, what you will do when, and follow that. If you have a calendar, then you will follow it. If you don't have calendar, then you will not follow it. So by being consistent and following these calendars, you will definitely achieve it. And third is revise effectively. Just by preparing and going to the exam doesn't work in professional courses. Definitely in CA courses, it doesn't work. You have to revise it. Not only one or twice, minimum 3 revisions is required. And that will give you the confidence. So you have to ensure your timetable in such a way that you're reading it and giving time for revision also. Three, if not possible, minimum 2 revisions is required. Clear? So believe in yourself, be consistent, and revise effectively. These are the tips from my end. Now, how do you decide the time of supply? We have, yes, you have time of supply for goods and time of supply for services separately. Now, time of supply of goods we will understand separately, and time of supply for services we will understand separately. It will include time of supply for goods under forward charge, time of supply for services under forward charge, and it also includes vouchers and residual cases. There is one good news for you. Let me just see that. that for your exams, you will have to cross check that. But in the Finance Act 2025, they've removed this time of supply for vouchers. So effectively, you don't have to read this because Finance Act 2025 has come into effect. So in that Finance Act 2025, vouchers, the topic or time of supply for vouchers is removed itself. Vouchers are not removed, vouchers are there, but the effect of it in terms of this time curve similar, you can confirm. So since the Finance Act have received the assent and vouchers, time of supply for vouchers effectively supply under forward charge, time of supply under reverse charge, and other residual cases. Okay. So now we will start with what is the time of supply? Why, when is GST payable? Now you have, when you do any supply, there are various elements which is involved, like a practical situation. If you see, like I said, most of my classes will be giving you a practical insight also, not only theoretical. How does the industry work? If they want to buy something, can they just go and buy it? No. A person who wants to buy, he has to give a purchase order because the seller has to keep the goods ready. If he has to manufacture, he has to arrange all the raw materials and keep it ready. Or if he's buying from somebody and giving, he has to keep that much of stock with him. So you have to give a purchase order, give an intimation to the seller saying that I want to buy some goods from you. So first is purchase order. Second, after he gives a purchase order, he will dispatch the goods and then he will deliver the goods. What is the difference between dispatch and delivery? He will dispatch it on one day. It will not you will not receive it on the same day. If it is from different corridors of this place, then he will dispatch it and you may receive it at a later point of time. Or sometimes it is required that service is to be performed. So once that is completed, only then as you get, how will you enter it? If you have a ERP system, that's fine. That will record it. But if there's no ERP system, you have to record it in your books of accounts. And then you have to make payments. And once you make a payment also, you may issue a check. And when you enter that in your books of account also is a different date. So there are so many different aspects which are involved in a supply. So which point does it become payable when the agreement is entered into? Is it becoming payable when the goods are shipped itself or when invoice is issued or payment is received? What is the time of supply? That is what we have to decide, Singla, that what is the time when time of supply will be decided is what we will see here. Now, various points are there. Like this could be one point given as purchase order is raised, another point saying that supply is dispatched, one is good which is received, and one when the invoice is raised. So various pointers are there in a transaction, like how we have seen in the previous slide. In a The GST law is not like a theoretical law. They've seen what business does and then decided what should be the time of supply. So in this case, various point of times will get involved and then time of supply is decided accordingly. Okay. So that is how time of supply is decided. Now we will see, before getting into time of supply, what are the important definitions. One important definition, movable property. So any movable property is goods. So one thing is clear that immovable property is excluded from the definition of goods. So goods means all kind of movable property and it includes actionable claim, growing crops, grass and things forming part of the land. Actionable claim, growing crops, grass and things forming part of the land which is agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply, and it excludes money and securities. Generally, definitions you don't have to remember, but important definitions like this: goods, services, supply. Supply, definitely you have a separate section itself. Within the definition section, I would say section number also if you don't remember, but the meaning of some terms is important. Goods, you have to remember. Goods means all kinds of movable property. It includes actionable claims, growing crops, grass, and things forming part of the land, which is agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply. And it excludes money and securities. Clear? What is actionable claim? A right to claim something that is an actionable claim. Now, the definition of actionable claim is also defined under the law. And that is a very huge definition because all actionable claims are excluded by Schedule 3, but only what is specified as exclusion of exclusion in Schedule 3 that is taxable under GST. Okay, we'll come to the definition of actionable claims later on, but understand this that all actionable claims are not liable to GST. Only certain actionable claims are liable to GST under this GST law. Growing crops, grass are things forming part of the land which is agreed to be severed. Now I have to enter into a contract with you. Now you want to take the benefit of the fruits which are hanging from the trees. So you will tell me you sign an agreement of sale of this property. Okay, when I signed a property deal with you, if I sell the immovable property, there is no tax on immovable property, correct? Because why? GST is only on goods and services, and goods means all kinds of movable property, which means automatically it excludes immovable property. So if I sell you this land on which this tree fruits are growing, then this GST, which would have been payable on these fruits, will get excluded. So that's why they've included here by saying that it includes growing crops, grass, and things which is forming part of the land, which is agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply. So to get rid of such tax planning, the definition of goods itself includes all such things which is grass or things forming part of the land, which can include anything. Fruits is an example. Any benefits which is arising from the land, which is agreed to be severed before supply or under a contract of supply is also goods. But it excludes money and securities. Growing crops, example, sugarcane sells to sugar factory by farmer. Yeah, so growing crops, if the farmer sells it, definitely it's taxable because he will sever it and sell it. That is always good because that becomes good because it becomes a movable property, Harshal. So that is already included in the definition of movable property itself. But the cases where I'm giving you an example that if the farmer sells this land itself along with the sugarcane, then also it will be treated as goods, is what this specific inclusion is saying. ठीक है समझ में आया? Now definition of services. Services means anything other than goods, money, and securities. So services means anything other than goods, money, and securities. Timber, that's also a good example. Yes, timber, sugarcane, all of that. When you agree to sever it under a contract of supply, then it is a supply. It is a goods. Services means anything other than goods. So anything, because they didn't want to like restrict it, saying that this is only services. So they have kept it a wide amplitude open, saying that services means anything other than goods, money, and securities. But it includes activities relating to use of money. Money is excluded in goods and services definition. Securities also is excluded from goods and services definition, but it includes activities relating to use of money or its conversion for a consideration. Money, how is it converted? Money is converted as money from money to check, money to DD, from Indian currency to foreign currency. So anything conversion, what you do, and for that conversion, if you charge something on that, GST is payable. Commission charges for conversion, correct, Harshal? That is all taxable. So you cannot say money is excluded, so my commission also is excluded. No, money is excluded, but any incidental charges related to that, that will be taxable. Then activities facilitating or arranging transactions in securities. The activities of facilitating or arranging transactions in securities. Securities, if you buy shares, you don't pay GST. Securities means what? Shares, debentures, bonds, and anything. So you're buying a capital of a company. So on the equity, on the shares, what you buy, there is no GST. But on the activities which is facilitating it, the broker who will help you to buy it. That brokerage charges, that is liable to GST. So that is the definition of services. Clear? Platform fees, correct? Platform fees also liable to GST. So you cannot say, since the base is taxable, anything above that or anything to convert it should also be exempted. No. Only the base is exempted, that is, securities and money is exempted. Anything else other than that to convert it will all be taxable. Recipient, who is a recipient? If consideration is payable for supply of goods or services, then the person who is liable to pay that consideration is the recipient. If there is no consideration payable, then the person to whom the goods are delivered are available, or to whom the possession of the goods is given, he will become the recipient. Because we will see under the time of supply who is a supplier, who is a recipient. That's why this becomes important. And if no consideration is payable for the supply of goods or services, then the person to whom the services is rendered, he is treated as recipient. So in simple terms, recipient would mean if there is a money which I have to pay, then the person who is liable to pay that money, he is the recipient. But if there is no person liable to pay the money, then the person to whom such goods are given, he is the recipient. Similarly, services, to whom the services are rendered, he will become the recipient. Now, supplier, again same. Supplier in relation to the goods means the person who is supplying the goods, and includes the agent who is acting on behalf of him. So supplier will be the person who is supplying it, or his agent, that is the person who is authorizing another person. Then that another person will not become the supplier. I am giving the right to him to supply it. So still I am the main supplier. So person who's actually delivering it, like I have to give some goods to another person, and I've told my uh, worker to go and supply it. So will he become supplier? No. I will become the supplier because on my instructions he is supplying it. So that is the definition of supplier. Now, once we understood the definition of basics, that is what is goods, what is services, who is a supplier, who is a recipient, now we can get into understanding of what is the time of supply. Correct. On behalf of the principal, if somebody is supplying, the principal only will become the supplier. Similarly, recipient, if a person is receiving on my behalf, but who is the receiver? I am the receiver, because on the principal's behalf, the agent is receiving, but the supplier or the recipient is the principal only. Time of supply for goods says that the liability to pay goods shall arise at the earliest of the following, which is the date of invoice, or the last date on which invoice is to be issued, or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Okay. So we know that time of supply for goods will be date of issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. But we also know that this will not apply for goods. Why? Because of this important notification number 66 of 2017, which you have to by heart and keep it. Notification number of 66 of 2017 says in all your exams, whenever there's a question on time of supply of goods, you have to use this notification number 66 of 2017, dated 15 November 2017, and say that taxes under forward charge are not required to be paid GST at the time of receipt of advance in relation to supply of goods. So when you supply the goods and you're receiving advance, you don't have to pay GST at the time of receipt of advance, but you have to pay GST at the time of issuance of invoice. Clear? But for services, if you receive advances for supply of services, you have to pay GST when you receive the advance for that services. Okay. But in case of supply of goods, you get that exemption. So it's not that on supply of goods, you don't have to pay GST. Definitely you have to pay, but you have to pay when you raise the invoice. आपको advance आ गया है advance में before supplying the goods, ठीक है, you keep that money, that will not convert the time of supply. Clear? So time of supply of goods is date of issue of invoice or receipt of payment. Receipt of payment is gone. Now, when should you raise the invoice? Where the supply involves, so you may say that, okay, I have supplied the goods, now I will raise after 30 days because time of supply is when I raise the invoice, I can raise it anytime. No, you cannot raise it anytime. There is a specified time limit saying that when you should raise the invoice. Before that, you should raise the invoice, or when you are supposed to raise that invoice, that will become the time of supply. So date of issue of invoice means where the supply involves movement of goods. At the time of removal of the goods, you have to raise an invoice. Now, where the supply is involving movement of goods from, okay, 5 minutes. Where the supply is involving movement of goods, I am delivering goods to you, right? So there is a movement involved. So there is a movement involved in this good. So when the supply is involving the movement of goods, I have to raise the invoice once the goods are removed. Once I remove the goods from my factory premises, before that I have to raise an invoice. So you cannot say that you will raise an invoice at a later point of time. You have to raise an invoice before the goods are removed from your place. And where the supply does not involve movement, then delivery of the goods or making available the goods. Now, what could be the example for this second part? For the second part, it will be that other than movement will be where the goods are delivered. Like you have a air conditioner here. Now, this air conditioner, you're selling it, but you're not moving it. So it's an example of supply not involving movement. Now, when you give the possession of that to the recipient, that is the time when you have to raise the invoice. Constructive delivery, correct. Now, there are some exceptions which is not applicable because receipt of payment is removed. So receipt of amount up to 1000 in excess will not apply because time of supply of goods may it is always when you raise the invoice. Second is when the supply is deemed to have been made to the extent of invoice. This is also not applicable. We'll see this again when the services comes in because at for time of supply of services this will apply. So time of supply of goods very simple. You have to raise an invoice at a particular point of time. If you raise it that point of time, good. Now, if you have removed the goods and you have not raised the invoice, time of supply will be still when you have removed it. Okay. So these are the conditions which says that when you should raise the invoice. If you don't raise it, that time will still be the same. So in exception 1000 excess, the date of excess is made in. Yes, Harshal, this is there in the provisions, but because receipt of payment is removed, that will not apply here. Just see this if there's any questions. Just give me one moment. Yes, Barna. Exceptions we'll not see here for goods. So for the time being, please ignore this. It is there in the act, so I'm just continuing it. But the effect of this is not there. When we come back to services, I will tell you what is the impact of this. Okay. But time of subscription for goods, understand that once you raise an invoice, you have to pay the GST. But on receipt, you don't have to pay GST. सब जब goods आपने supply किया है, now somebody is supplying goods to you. Okay. Now you are paying him advance. So on that advance, they don't have to pay GST. Once they raise an invoice, that point of time itself, they have to pay GST on it. Now, continuous supply of goods and continuous supply of services. What is the time of supply for continuous supply of goods and continuous supply of services is what we'll see. The continuous supply of goods means, firstly, it means a supply of goods which is provided or agreed to be provided continuously or on a recurrent basis under a contract, whether or not by means of a wire, cable, pipeline, or other conduit. Conduit means any other source for which the supplier invoices the recipient on a regular or periodic basis, and it includes supply of such goods as the government may, subject to such conditions as it may by notification specified. So, continuous supply of goods means you're supplying goods on a continuous basis by one of these modes. It could be a wire, cable, or pipeline. Suppose my internet connection. Internet connection is supply of the internet service or supply of telephone service through the cable on a continuous basis. So that's an example of continuous supply of goods. Similarly, say there is a cement batching plant. Now I need to supply it to a construction company. Construction company saying that by the time you manufacture the cement and do the ready mix concrete and get it over here, it will become very late. So you have to set up in my plant itself a batching plant wherein you will do the ready mix concrete. So the ready mix concrete is the responsibility of the cement company. Now they will supply to me through how? They will not weigh every time. They will supply it through a pipeline. Now through that pipeline, whatever is coming in, it is a continuous supply of goods. So that is the definition of continuous supply of goods. And continuous supply of services, on the contrary, means a supply of services, again same, which is continuously supplied. But how do you decide continuity in case of services? Which is supplied under a contract for a period exceeding 3 months, where the supply is for a period of more than 3 months. For goods, there is no timeline specified, but for services, there's a timeline specified that when it is continuously supplied for a period of more than 3 months, where there is a periodic payment obligation and includes any supply which the government may notify, is a continuous supply of services. So for both goods and services, government has not specified anything, but if something comes up, they have the power to specify it. So continuous supply of goods is where the supply is happening on a continuous basis through any mode, any communication channel. And continuous supply of services means supply of services, which is for a period of more than 3 months. Now, when should the invoice be raised for continuous supply of goods? In case of continuous supply of goods, where the successive statements of accounts or successive payments are involved. Now, अगर आपने continuous supply किया है, then you will have a contract saying that on what basis you will raise the invoice. So where successive statement of accounts. Successive means regularly. आपने डिसाइड किया कि मैं आपको सप्लाई करते रहूंगा सीमेंट, लेकिन मंथली मैं आपको इनवॉइस रेज करूंगा. So that is called as successive statement of accounts. How much is the cement I've supplied? That is successive statement of accounts, or there is successive payment saying that, okay, whether I invoice to you or no, on a monthly basis, you will make me fixed amount of payment. And then at the end of the contract, we'll settle it. So when there is successive statement of accounts or successive payment is are involved, the invoice shall be issued before or at the time when such statement is issued or when the payment is received. Whichever is the term you decide. Again, here it is not whichever is earlier. Whatever is the condition you both have decided based on that. Clear? So that is continuous supply of goods. Time of supply for continuous supply of services. We'll define what is the time of supply for services, then find out what is the time of supply for continuous supply of services. Perfect. Okay. Now that is the time of supply for continuous supply of goods. Next aspect, where the goods are being sent or taken on approval for sale or return basis. Now, here, this is very interesting. I sell goods to you on sale or return basis. Generally, it doesn't happen in multi any trade, but few businesses it happens, like where there is a selection which is involved. कि मैंने आपको सप्लाई किया है, आपको पसंद आया तो रखिए वरना रिटर्न कर दीजिए. My favorite example is a jewelry. So I go to a jewelry shop. I tell that I will buy this, but I don't know if I buy this whether my wife will like it or no. If she doesn't like, whatever amount I spend is wasted. तो क्या करूं? दो खरीद लो, तीन खरीद लो. I don't have so much of work that I can collect, buy so much. Supplier is my friend saying that you do one thing. You take three jewelry sets from my end, use it, and give me the approval once it is confirmed on which one you will buy. ठीक है. So sell it and you can select which one you will buy at your convenience. So I buy the three sets. I give it to my wife. She takes 2 months to select it because she has to match it with her dress. She has to match it with her sari. She has to match it various things, and then she will decide. So she's decided in 2 months, saying that okay, this set I will buy. Now GST has to be paid on which one? Alu? Should be paid on all the three, or should be paid on only one? Only one which is selected. Now, when should that be paid? Correct, you're right that only one I bought it, two I'm returning. So logically, you're right that yes, on one I have to pay. Now, when should I pay the GST on that one set, one which is selected? On the date of approval. Correct. So once I approve, that is when I'm confirming. That is fine. Now, in that case of jewelry, say my wife decided to buy that after 8 months. So will the GST law say that okay, you can wait for 8 months and raise the invoice at the end of that 8 month when it is confirmed? Will it not become too late? Not wait. So that is when the time of supply provision comes in. It says before or at the time of supply, or 6 months from the date of removal. So in the first example, it got approved within 2 months, fine. That will be the time of supply. But that confirmation cannot go beyond a period of 6 months. So when the supplier has supplied it, fine. Supplier has supplied it and recipient should approve it within 6 months. Otherwise, supplier has to raise the invoice within 6 months. ऐसा नहीं बोल सकता कि भाई तुम एक साल लोगे, I will raise the invoice at the end of when you decided. Maximum 6 months, government also will wait, saying that okay, somebody has to check it and do some things. So within 6 months, they have to decide it. If they decided, fine. Otherwise, at the end of 6 months, supplier has to raise a invoice for it, whichever is earlier. Fine. Now, time of supply for goods under reverse charge basis. Now, all of this was under forward charge, but reverse charge, what happens? That recipient has to pay. We know what is reverse charge. We have seen the definition of reverse charge and we have seen the notification for services under reverse charge. For goods, also reverse charge is there. That is some unorganized sector supplying it to the recipient. Recipient has to pay, like tobacco leaves, tendu leaves. Okay. Those things, recipient has to pay GST under reverse charge basis. So time of supply is earliest of the following dates, which is the date of receipt of the goods or date immediately following 30 days from the issue of invoice by the supplier. So once you receive it or the time immediately 30 days from the date of invoice, whichever is earlier, or date of payment. So these are the things, whichever these one of these three things occurs, whichever occurs first, that will be the time of supply. If it is not possible to determine under options A, B, and C, then the time of supply is date of entry in the books of accounts of the recipient. Okay. So if supplier is not there, then the recipient will have to see that what is the date of entry in the books of accounts of the recipient. That will be the time of supply. Yeah. Before that, now, what is deleted? Like we were discussing the vouchers, there are so many options of vouchers, discussion vouchers. So that is deleted. So vouchers we will not read. Time of supply for vouchers also we will not read. Lot of these drawings is gone. Now, time of supply in the residuary cases, that is in the where it is not possible to determine the time of supply of goods or services. So government is being very cautious and they've said that we have decided the time of supply under various situations. But if those situation doesn't take place or you're not still able to decide it, then the time of supply will be if the periodic return is filed. Then when such return is filed, that will be the time of supply. And other than that, when the date on which the tax is paid, that will be the time of supply. When the tax is paid, that will be the time of supply. Actual date of return or the due date of return. Due date of return, the periodic return, when such date on which return is filed. If it is filed, like when the return is filed, if return is not filed, when it is supposed to be filed. Due date, actually, you're right. Okay. And other than this cases, when return is not filed, suppose a person is not registered, when the tax is paid, that will be the time of supply. Correct, Garv Singla, monthly return, that is 20th, right. And what will be the, where, so this is again the reincarnation, when the date on which the return is required to be filed. That's right. When the date on which return is required to be filed or the date on which GST is paid, whichever is relevant. In case of special charges, that is what will be the due date in case of IPL, not our IP, Indian Premier League. Here, IPL means when you have to charge any interest, penalty, or late fees. Then what will be the time of supply? When you have to charge interest to the supplier for late payment. You have to charge penalty for late payment or late fees for late payment. Then GST will be on receipt basis. What does this mean? I have supplied goods to you for 1 lakh rupees. The time of supply will be when the invoice is raised. Now I have paid the GST to the government because for me the time of supply is raising the invoice. Now I have paid that, but you have not paid me. So that's first of all a loss because I've paid it to the government and the customer is not paid it to me. But on top of it, in our agreement, I've said that within, if you don't pay within 60 days, then I will charge you interest. So I charge him interest after a month because 1 month time I have to give. After 1 month, I raise a debit note and charge interest. No, that also it delays by the second month. So on that interest, once I raise a debit note, should I pay GST? You don't have to pay GST on that interest immediately. Once the customer pays it, that time you have to pay GST to the government, is what this provision is saying. So if he pays on the third month, then time of supply for interest is the third month. I have some FAQs there. You will find a question on this. That time you will understand it. But it's still added to the value of supply unless waived. Correct. It's still added to the value of supply. You're right. So for valuation purposes and tax rate purposes, it is in align with the main value of supply itself. And if there's any other default, if it is linked to the original supply, then GST is based on the date of debit note. Okay. So that is on time of supply for goods. Again, in case of due to delay in payment, if there is addition value IPL, then GST is on receipt basis. IPL is interest, penalty, late fees. Now we'll get into time of supply for services. Time of supply of services says if the invoice is issued within 30 or 45 days. What is 30 or 45 days? So practically it is 30 days, but for 45 days for special categories, which is for insurance companies, for banking companies, and financial institutions. Because for them, the collection happens very late. So they've given extra time for that. If the invoice is issued within 30 days or 40 days, 30 or 40 days from when? From the date when the services is completed. If the service is completed today, you are not expected to raise an invoice today only for services. But for goods, if you're moving to goods, you have to have a control on that because once goods is gone, you don't know when you'll get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So that's why once the goods dispatches from your factory, you have to raise an invoice. But for services, once you complete the service, you get a time of 30 days to raise an invoice because service is intangible. So that's why they've said associate enterprise 30 days nahi hai bhai. 30 days is for insurance company, 30 days for everybody. 45 days is for insurance company, banking companies, and financial insurance. That 30 days, what you're referring, Harshal, is for a different scenario. Under reverse charge, I'll come to that. Associate enterprises concept is not there for forward charge. Okay. So time of supply of services, you have to raise the invoice within 30 days. 45 days is given for insurance companies, banking companies, and financial institutions. Now you have completed the supply and you have raised the invoice within 30 days. Have you raised the invoice within 30 days? Yes, you have raised. If you raise the invoice within 30 days, then the time of supply is issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Okay. If you raise the invoice within time, then the time of supply is issue of the invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Or if you raise the invoice late, if you raise the invoice after 30 days or after 45 days for banking, insurance, and financial institutions, for them, if you raise after 45 days, in normal cases, if you raise after 30 days, then the time of supply is receipt of payment or provision of service, not the date of invoice. It will go back to provision of service, whichever is earlier. Now, understand the implication of this. Now, I have supplied the services. I have provided, what does it say? Within 30 days of provision of services. So, I provided the services at the end of June. June 30th, I have provided the service. By when should I raise the invoice? Yes. I have to raise within 30 days. Correct, bhai. Kab tak? 30th June, if I provided services. When should I raise the invoice for it? I have rendered the services on 30th June. By 30th July. Correct. That is what exactly I'm asking. By 30th July, I have to raise the invoice. Now, if I raise invoice on 25th July or 30th July, fine. Time of supply will be, say, advance नहीं आया 30th July, 25th July को raise किया. Time of supply will be 25th July. Now, if I raise the invoice not within 30 days, I've raised it on 1st of August. Okay. मैंने delay किया है. So then 30th June. So if I raise the invoice on 1st of August, time of supply should be August 5th, but I've raised it late. In that case, what will be the time of supply? That case, Gayatri is saying in that case, it will go back to date of provision. मतलब June, July में भी raise नहीं किया, August में you made delay of more than 30 days. So you will go back to the date of provision of service, that is 30th June. Clear? Implication 30th June से आपने अगस्त में जो रेज किया इनवॉइस 2 मंथ का यू हैव टू पे एक्स्ट्रा इंटरेस्ट बिकॉज यू डिडंट follow the procedure of raising the invoice within 30 days. Okay. So, and if the amount is received earlier, of course, it will be receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So, receipt of payment or provision of service, whichever is earlier. That is, now what is receipt of payment? Either you have shown the receipts in your books of accounts or payment is credited in your bank account, whichever is relevant or whichever is earlier again here. Because sometimes it's come in the bank, but you have recorded late कि आप GST late pay कर सके. नहीं, that will not be counted. When it is credited in your bank, that will be considered the relevant date. Now, understood time of supply for services. Now, these two exceptions, we can understand it now in a better manner. The first exception says that receipt of amount in up to rupees 1,000 in excess. Now, I've provided a service for 1 lakh rupees and I've got advance. Say, I have raised an invoice for 1 lakh. I've raised an invoice for 99,000 rupees and customer has paid round figure of 1 lakh rupees. So on 99,000, it is time of supply is issue of invoice because I have not received the payment. For this 1,000 rupees, I have not raised the invoice, but the customer has paid me. So what is the time of supply for this 1,000 rupees in normal situation? What was the question I asked? Saying someone is saying receipt of payment, someone is saying date of invoice. Generally, yeah. On the 1,000 rupees, it will be in the normal situation when I receive excess, it will be date of receipt of payment. But this exception says up to 1,000 rupees, if you're receiving excess also, you don't have to pay GST on advance basis. You can pay it once you raise the next invoice. Now, generally, where is this applicable? This is applicable in telecommunication companies where you have to raise a postpaid bill. Airtel raises a postpaid bill of 5,400 rupees. Customer thinks, okay, I'll round it off and pay 5,500 rupees. So Airtel will pay GST on that 5,400 once I've raised the invoice. On that 100 rupees, they will pay now again once they raise the invoice next month, they have to adjust. So they will say, okay, 100 rupees is extra. This is which is up to 1000 rupees. So up to 1000 rupees excess what is received, they will, the time of supply, the government is saying you can pay once you raise the next invoice. Okay. That is the first exception. Second exception says that you told na 99,000 paid of 1 lakh. Yes, yes. Got it, Harshit. Generally, payment value is logged. No more or less is allowed. Sometimes you can pay extra also. Yeah, nowadays you get it, but some cases, I'm just giving you an example. But if you have to pay extra amount, they are ready to take it also. Yeah. Next is provision, second exception, supply which is deemed to have been made to the extent of value or value of invoice, to the extent of invoice or value of payment. So, like uh, 99,000 rupees invoice raised, customer has paid 1 lakh, right? That we saw the first exception. Second, now my example is say 98,000 invoices rate, customer is paid 1 lakh rupees. So will you get apply the first exception there? You will not apply because the excess is to the extent of 2,000 rupees. So now this 2,000 rupees, what excess you are getting, you're paying GST on it because it is more than 1,000 rupees. That 2,000 rupees, you have not provided supply. You have only received the advance, but to the extent of payment what you have made, it is deemed that you have made a supply. Because without supply, how can you pay GST? Later on, you should not claim refund. Then the government is saying that to the extent of advance what you have received and you have paid GST to the government, that is treated as though you have supplied something. That is treated as a supply. तो आप उसके ऊपर GST पे करके बाद में refund मत मांग लेना. That's the point of second exception. Clear? A lot of people had this question on the second exception. Clear now? तो जो भी एडवांस भी आप पे करते हो जीएसटी, टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ दैट एडवांस इट इज ट्रीटेड इट्स अ सप्लाई. Time limit for issuance of invoice is, of course, we have seen this 30 days and 45 days. In continuous supply of services, here it is little different. That is, where the due date is ascertainable from the contract, then the invoice shall be issued on or before the due date of payment. Where the due date is not ascertainable from the contract, the invoice shall be issued before or at the time when the supplier receives the payment. And where the payment is linked to the completion of an event, the invoice shall be issued before the completion of an event. So, in case of continuous supply of goods, we knew that the time of supply is when it is mentioned in the contract that when periodic statement is raised or periodic payment is made. But in case of continuous supply of services, the due date, when the due date is ascertainable from the contract, तो आपको services के case में contract होना बहुत जरूरी है for a continuous supply of services. So if there's a continuous supply of services का contract, in the contract, if the due date is ascertainable, then that is determinable. कि आप पहचान सकते हो कि कब due date है उसमें. So when the due date is ascertainable from the contract, the invoice shall be issued on or before the due date of that payment. Where the due date is not ascertainable from the contract, then the invoice shall be issued before or at the time when the supplier receives the payment. कि आपका मंथली मंथली पेमेंट करा है, पेमेंट के टाइम आपको रेस करना है. Where the payment is linked to the completion of an event, then the invoice should be issued at the time of completion of that event. जो event basis है. But can you give credit note to recipient if no add-on service is given? Like what I didn't understand. Date of completion or date of event, as the case may be correct. Can you give credit note to recipient if no add-on service is given? Like, then why are you issuing a credit note? You're issuing a credit note because there is some add-on service. Okay, continuous supply of services for goods is two things when the event is mentioned or precept is mentioned. But in case of services, on completion of event, if it is event based, if it is ascertainable, then ascertainable basis or receipt basis. Then when the supply of services ceases, कि आपका continuous supply service था, आप supply खत्म हो गया, then up to the date when the supply ceases, till that point of time you have to raise an invoice. ऐसा नहीं कि that event will happen at the end of the month, so I have to raise it then. No, when that service ceases, that will be the time of supply. Now, time of supply for services under reverse charge, you have a chart here to understand so that we can distinguish between RCM for goods and RCM for services. So, receipt of reverse charge mechanism for goods, the time of supply is earliest of receipt of the goods or date of payment or the 30 days from the issue of invoice. Right? That is the time of supply for goods. But time of supply for RCM for services will be, is there receipt of goods? No. So there is no actual receipt of services. So first condition is removed. Second condition is there, that is date of payment or 60 days from the issue of invoice. For supplier of goods, for reverse charge under goods, it is 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. But for services, it is 60 days from the issue of invoice. That's a major difference. So for goods, within 30 days, when the supplier raises it, you have to pay GST. But for services, you get 60 days time limit. If not, date of recording the supply. Now, the in case of AE, what is AE? In case of an associate enterprises, a supplier located outside India. That is, he should be two conditions. He should be an associate enterprises and he should be outside India. And then in that case, the date of recording supply and recipient books or the date of payment, whichever is earlier, will be the relevant date. Okay. So in case of an associate enterprises where the supplier is located outside India and the date of recording of supply in recipient's book or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Suppose now when does this situation comes? The situation comes in when Infosys is there. Infosys UK is buying a software for all over India, all over the world. Now, UK is taken the service from Google. Now, Google has invoiced to UK. Now, UK will take some services, it will give services to me, like that it will distribute. So, once it distributes, then what happens? When UK provides services to India, it will raise invoice after 1 year. But in the books of account, they have to make an entry because accounting says that on accrual basis, you have to do accounting saying that in the books, it will show as receivable from India. And I will show payable to UK. So once I enter it in my books of accounts, that will be the time of supply. So only in case of an associate enterprises, the actual entry in the books of accounts is the relevant date. AE, yes, associate enterprises should be outside India. If it is within India, then he will anyways charge me invoice later on. That's fine. But in case of associate enterprise outside India, this is the condition. Date of liability arises in books of recipient. Yes, because it will be under the recipient. We are talking about reverse charge and recipient has to pay. That's why it will be the books of the recipient itself. Thirty-one 3F, is it amended? 31 amended, guys. Let me check. 31 is amended. But in your note, it is still says 60 days. So I didn't want to deviate from that, but let me check. 31(3)(f). A registered person who is liable to pay tax under 9(3) within the period as may be prescribed issue an invoice in respect of goods or services from the supplier who is not registered. So this has been amended from 2024 within the period as may be prescribed. So they have come up with a prescription. Now, page number 35. Okay. Right. You should be paid within the 30 days from the date of receipt of supply of goods or services as may be. Yes, you're right. Thanks, Gayatri, for bringing this up. I will make this correction that for recipient RCM of services also very good that this is an amendment. You're right. So earlier it was 60 days. Now it is 30 days for both for goods as well as services. Both it is 30 days itself. Earlier, it was different for goods 30 and services 60. Thank you, Gayatri, for bringing this up, that it is 30 days for both goods and services. Okay. So RCM for goods also within 30 days from the date of invoice, and for services also 30 days from the date of invoice. Yeah, this is on the associate enterprises where the date of entry in the books of accounts or date of payment or date of entry of the service in the books of account of the recipient. That is date of entry of service in the books of account of the recipient or date of payment, whichever is earlier for associated enterprises. Now, what we understood, the provisions related time of supply as a revision is very simple. Time of supply of goods under forward charge, date of issue of invoice, right? Or date of recording the payment, but that is gone. So here it is no GST at the time of recipient because it is only for goods, it is only date of issue of invoice. For services, date of receipt, and for reverse charge, we're still on goods. Reverse charge, date of receipt of goods, date of recording the payment, or date on which payment is made, 31 days from the supplier's invoice. Yeah, yes, Gayatri, you want to, can unmute you.
So for supplier, the issue invoice for supplier it is 60 days, sir. If the recipient is to be issued by the if the invoice is issued by the recipient, then 30 days will be followed, sir. 60 days and 30 days both is applicable now. Can you check the amendment and what is it?
Now, the amendment says where an invoice referred in Rule 46 is required to be issued under 31(3)(f), right? Earlier, the provisions of time limit was there in 31(3)(f). Now it is through a notification and a rule actually. So that relevant rule is Rule 46. It says who is liable to pay tax under reverse charge, he shall issue the said invoice within a period of 30 days from the date of receipt of said supply of goods, as the case may be. Okay, so 30 days from the date of receipt of said supply of goods. So it's not from the date of invoice. You're right. That's your doubt, right?
No, sir. In the book, second line, the date of payment and date of immediately following 60 date from the date of issue of the invoice by the supplier. In case where the invoice is required to issued by the supplier and date of issue by the recipient is 60 days.
No, there's no 60 days now. It's just 30 days. I'll just share the screen. So it says where an invoice referred 313F is on reverse charge on
Sir, can you move up, sir, little up, sir? See, sir, there is highlighted words.
the time of supply of services under reverse charge. The time of supply of services on which GST is payable on reverse charge basis, except on associate enterprises, is determined in the following ways: date of payment or date immediately following 60 days from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier in case where invoice is required to be issued by the supplier, and date of issue of invoice by the recipient in case where invoice is to be issued by the recipient. Okay, so where the supplier is registered, in that case, supplier will raise the invoice. So reverse charge will be 60 days in that case. And where the supplier is unregistered, in that case, recipient has to raise the self invoice. So in the case of that self invoice, date of issue will be where date of issue of invoice is by the recipient. In that case, where invoice is to be issued by the recipient. And that has to be within 30 days. Clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So there are two categories within reverse charge: when the supplier is registered, and second is when the supplier is not registered. If the supplier is registered and he raises the invoice, recipient has to pay it within 60 days from that invoice. And where the supplier is not registered, recipient has to raise it within 30 days from the receipt of the supply. Good. Thanks for clarifying, bringing this up. But it's not forward charge, it is also reverse charge itself, because this 31 is time of supply for services under reverse charge itself. So when the supplier is registered, then you get 60 days time. And in case where the supplier is not registered, then you have to raise it within 30 days time limit. This is good. This is a very good amendment actually. And this amendment we've seen has having a practical implication. So you can expect some question from this, because this is like a amendment which has happened. Supplier required means he is registered. Correct. If he is not registered, then he is not required, because here they're talking a tax invoice. A tax invoice can be raised only by the registered supplier. So we're now talking for goods. Goods, it says receipt of goods, recording the payment or date on which payment is debited from the bank account, or 30 days from the supplier's invoice. And time of supply vouchers is not there technically, so we'll remove this. And time of supply for services will be date of issue of invoice or date of recording payment or the date of actual payment in the bank, whichever is earlier. Basically, date of issue of invoice or receipt of payment. Time of supply under forward charge, where invoice is not issued within the time limit. That is, if you raise the invoice within time limit, then it is issue of invoice or receipt of payment. But when invoice is not issued within the time limit, then it is date of provision of service or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. And the time of supply for services under reverse charge, just now we have discussed 60 days from the supplier, where the supplier is registered, or payment, whichever is earlier. And if the supplier is not registered, uh, supplier recipient has to pay it within 30 days from the provision of service or date of payment, whichever is earlier. Again, here vouchers is not there. Residual cases, that is when none of it is mentioned, and then the periodic return is to be filed, then the due date of such return or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. And in case of IPL, interest, late fees, and penalty, the date on which supplier receives, that will be the time of supply. Now, just answer these questions. Just give me 1 minute. Sorry. Yeah. So in this case, what is your answers? It's related to voucher, right? But even on a logical basis, that if you get this, your answer will be that when voucher is actually 26th June is the answer, because 26th June is when the voucher is redeemed. So effectively what happens, if the voucher provisions is gone, the time of supply will be, it'll be treated like a voucher is a money, right? So when you've taken the value worth it and it is in relation to goods, then once the invoice is raised, it will go back to that. Correct. Correct. Most of you have get correct answer. It is option D, date of receipt of goods or date immediately following 30 days from the date of invoice or the date of payment, whichever is earlier. A lot of people are getting confused here. The correct answer is 29th May because it is services and services. It is receipt or issue of invoice, whichever is earlier, not B. Many people have said 28th June because invoice is issued, but it is services. Services, issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. Clear, Gayatri? Clear, Vishaka? Garb? No, this is not RCM. Yeah, be careful. Yeah, the question will be confusing forward charge, reverse charge. This is not RCM, this is forward charge. This we are assuming that yes, supplier is registered. The supplier is unregistered, the answer will change. Here we will tell that supplier is registered. Correct. Supplier के case में 60 days. So it will be C. When the supplier is not registered, then it will be C. It will be B. Here we are stating here that supplier is registered. If supplier is registered, date of payment or date immediately following 60 days from the date of invoice, whichever is earlier. So that when the supplier is registered, it is C. Okay, if you assume supplier is unregistered, then it will be B. I think the question has to be clear. I agree that. Hope everybody is thinking it in line. 12th January, because provide services on 12th January. Invoice is not issued within 30 days, so it will become date of provision of service, not the date of issue of service. Yeah. Question number 6. You assume Karthik is registered. What do you think? Karthik is registered. That's why he's charging GST. Right. It is 12th Jan 2025 because he's raised the invoice. Right. Late. If Karthik is unregistered, then time of supply will be on the recipient. So that is a separate question. Then it'll be 22nd March. Yes. Then it'll be 22nd March. You're right. It'll be 30 days, not even 22nd March. 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. Okay. So here it's a general question. Determine the time of supply for the following particulars. No options here.
Hello,
But you
sir.
can't assume Harshal because supplier has charged GST. So you can't assume that he's unregistered.
Sir, I can speak.
Yes, yes.
Sir, in this case, date of event in 6th May, advance is received 3,000. So for first event, first advance payment date is a 6th May is a service. It is a date of time of supply. And for second balance payment, it is date of provision, I think, because it is earlier. So 15 September is for balance payment, which is 12,000.
But 15 September, why 15 September and why not 27th October?
Because the service provided on that date.
Yeah, but you have time to raise invoice, right? As soon as the service is provided, you don't have to raise the invoice.
It means कि 13 days we will require to see to
Correct.
check.
Correct. You have to check that. As soon as service is provided, you don't have to raise.
So sir, it is more than 13 days. Therefore, we require to take the date
Correct.
of 15th September.
Correct. So, right. Time of supply of services to the extent of 3,000, you're right, is 6th May, as the date of payment is earlier than the date of provision of service. And for the 12,000, it is 15 September, which is date of provision of service because invoice is raised after 30 days. Okay. Next question. Determine the time of supply. This is under reverse charge. And here we can assume that supplier is unregistered. Correct symbol. Advance more than 1,000. So it is 6th May.
Sir, can I speak?
Yes.
Sir, I think in that case, we are assuming the supplier is unregistered and it is comes in RCM case. So, date which is on service issue date is date of invoice issued on 4th May. There is dispute about the amount payable and payment is delayed. So, sir, when in the books of recipient will require to check. So, we are assuming that the 4 May on that date recipient is recorded in his books because recipient is registered in case of RCM supply. So therefore, the date of services date of supply for a time of supply for a services is a 4th May. I'm assuming that.
No, assuming that you can make only one assumption that supplier is unregistered. Okay, now dispute happened, all that is fine. But recording in books is not a condition for reverse charge. The condition is you have to so you delayed the payment, but reverse charge, you will have to make the payment within 30 days. So your time of supply will be June 4th or June 3rd to be more specific. 3rd June will be the time of supply. 30 days time limit.
May 4th.
30 days from May 4th. Yes. Fifth, third July भरना मतलब not 5th. Extra दिन नहीं लगेगा ना. 4th June, correct. So 4th June will be the correct thing because it should be 31st day. So time of supply will be 4th June. So 60 days will be in other cases. Here it will be 4th June. Yeah, your RCM in service 60 days where the supplier is registered, Barna. If the supplier is unregistered, then 30 days. That is what the discussion we had. Here you can assume that the supplier is registered. Since it's a law firm, you can make an assumption that the supplier is registered. Okay. In that case, why am I getting this? Time of supply under reverse charge is the earliest of 2 days in case supplier is registered, date of payment, or 61 days from the date of issue of invoice. So the date of comes subsequent to the 61st day. Therefore, 61st day from supplier's invoice has to be taken. So 19th April is the time of supply.
Sir, here is not required to check the 13 days.
Not required because supplier, when he is registered, we have to see 60 days. If the supplier is not registered, then we will see 30 days.
It means that as per the amendments in 31st section,
Correct.
is there business or for both cases, goods or as well as
Both. But 60 days for registered will be only for services. But 30 days is for both goods and services.
if it is
When the
supplier is
supplier is unregistered. When the
in
supplier
RC
is
only.
registered, it is 60 days for services always.
Okay. It means the change is only for the forward charges, 30 days, 30 days. Goods
Not
and
forward
service.
charge. No forward charge. Reverse charge only.
Only for reverse charge. Okay,
Yes,
sir.
only for reverse charge. If question doesn't specify, generally it should specify. If doesn't specify, you make your assumptions and then write your answers. Okay, clear on time of supply. So we'll take a break of time of 5 minutes, and we'll come and discuss on value of supply. Yeah, on value of supply, there is an amendment on post discount. We'll go through that also. Sure. Okay, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay, then. Yeah. So we'll catch up at 7:50 then. ABC Limited is having a associate in UK where services is taken by ABC Limited on 1st June 2026 from associate, and associate issues invoice on 15th July 2016. So what is the time of supply? Okay, 1st June they have taken the service and invoice is issued on 15th July. In that case, what is the time of supply? You tell me, Harshal, what is the time of supply is. But one more aspect has to be considered here is not just the issue of invoice. When is it recorded in the ABC Limited's books of accounts? That is also relevant. Correct. Date of entry in the Indian books of accounts, exactly right. Garg has given the correct answer. When it is recorded in the recipient's books of accounts. Otherwise, it's a normal reverse charge. That's fine. Okay. Let's move to value of supply. It's the simplest topic, I would say. Now, duty or taxes has to be paid on some value. Now, that value can be ad valorem or specific duty. Now, ad valorem means what is the value which is being given. On that, some percentage is charged. That is called as ad valorem. And when, irrespective of the value, if the duty is calculated on specific factors, that is called a specific duty levy. That is, if you sell some goods to me for 1 lakh, on 1 lakh, some percentage, 5%, 10% I pay. So that is called as ad valorem, which is duty is payable on the value of the goods. But if it is on some prescription, like could be on the weight, could be on the length, on such factor, it is a specific duty, or on numbers, like it is fixed like 100 rupees for this product, irrespective of your value. That is called a specific duty levy. Like on cigarettes, based on the length of the cigarette, duty is charged. That is called as specific duty. So duty could be ad valorem or specific duty. But in GST, we have that it is always on the value itself, but cess on cigarettes is on specific duty levy. Now, to getting into the value of supply, we have to understand few more definitions. First is the definition of agent. Who is an agent? Agent means a factor, a broker, a commission agent, a ahatia, a del credar agent, a auctioneer, a merchant agent who carries on the business of supply of goods or services on behalf of another. He is called as an agent. So it could be anyone who is supplying on behalf of the principal. He is an agent by whatever name, different names which is popularly used is given. Okay. Now consideration. Consideration is payment in money or otherwise for supply by the recipient or any other person. So consideration need not be paid always by the recipient. It can be paid on behalf of recipient by some other person. That is also consideration. So consideration is payment in money or otherwise for the supply by the recipient or any other person, or the monetary value of an act or forbearance for the supply. That is the monetary value which is decided. That will be the consideration, wherein if there is a barter transaction, then what I give, that will become the consideration for the other person, and what I receive will be the consideration for me. Correct? So generally consideration is payment in money or otherwise for the supply by the recipient or any other person, and monetary value of any act of forbearance for the supply, that is consideration. Now, there are contracts where before you buy from somebody, they're saying that you give me deposit. Now, will the deposit become consideration? Because it's a refundable deposit generally. That I don't know who are you, but to have any transaction with you, you have to give me some deposit. Now, will that deposit become consideration? I don't think so. Deposit to be considered as payment. It can be considered as a consideration when the supplier applies such deposit as a consideration for the said supply. That I've given a deposit. Now, that will not be a consideration. But when the deposit is applied, when I default the payment and that deposit is used against that supply, then only it will be treated as a consideration. In normal situation, it will not be treated. Flat on rent taken to deposit. Very nice. Good example. So when you take a flat on rent, you give the deposit. Now, will that be a supply on which GST has to be paid by the landlord? No, it need not be because it's a deposit. But when I default in paying the rent and then the supplier says, no, you're defaulted for long, I will adjust it from your deposit. Then only it is treated as a consideration. Then every month when he adjusts, it will be treated as receive the consideration. Correct. Deposit is different from advance. Advance is for the supply. Deposit is for guarantee. It excludes subsidy given by the central government and state government. Now, when subsidy is given by the central government and state government, then it is excluded. But subsidy is given by any other person, then it is also a consideration. Where any expense incurred on repair is paid by such deposit at the end of the agreement of rental period at the time. Yeah. Then also when it is applied, because who is collecting that? The landlord is collecting towards repair. So that is also called as consideration because if not for the deposit, he's done repair, he would have collected from me the additional amount, right? So that is also consideration. Now, what is definition of money? It means Indian legal tender, foreign currency, check, promissory note, bill of supply, letter of credit, draft, demand draft, pre-order. All these terms not to be remembered. First, we are understanding whatever ways of transaction you do in money, all of that is money. When it is used as a consideration to settle an obligation or exchange with Indian legal tender of another denomination, excludes currency which is held for its numismatic value, old notes, some unique notes, numbers with unique number, notes with unique number, where you're not using it for that exact value, but for some appreciative value. Then that is not money. Otherwise, it is all money itself. Specific coins, 2000 rupees notes, yes, they are all treated as currency held for its numismatic value. Then definition of related person. Related person means a person who is, because if there is a related person, then the valuation will differ. Whether you should go with normal value or special value, that's why related party definition is important. It says when such persons are officers or directors of one another's business, such persons are legally recognized partners, such persons are employer and employee. One person directly holds or controls more than 25% of the outstanding voting shares. One of them directly or indirectly controls the other. Both of them are directly or indirectly controlled, and together they hold. And the eighth addition is one of them is a sole agent or distributor, then they are treated as related parties. Okay. As a partner of the firm who provide legal services to the company. Yes, partner and the firm, such partners are legally recognized partners. They are related parties. Clear on the related parties? Now, what is the value of the taxable supply? This one slide covers it all. It says that what is the valuation, but we will break it up in detail. Section 15.1, which is the main section on valuation, says transaction value, that is the price actually paid or payable for the supply, is the value of taxable supply. The conditions are that they are not related parties and price is the sole consideration. Is distinct person a related? Definitely, because distinct person is same person. Only that he has a separate registration. It is myself having a different unit. What is a distinct person? That I have one registration here, another registration in the same state. Myself having two registrations, so it is related definitely. Okay. The transaction value is the price which is actually paid or payable for the supply. Then it will be treated as a related party. So transaction value is the price which is, if these two conditions are satisfied, we'll understand it this way. When there are two parties, they're not related to each other, and price is the sole consideration, then the value will be the transaction value. Now, what is transaction value? The price which you're actually paying for the supply. Whatever value, the MRP can be 100, but he's selling you at 80. And you both are not related and only the price is the consideration, then 80 will become the transaction value. Now, to this transaction value, the condition has to be satisfied that the two parties should not be related and price should be the sole consideration. If one of them is also not met, that they are related party and price is still the sole consideration, still you will not apply the transaction value because they are related party. Second instance, you're not related parties, but price is not sole consideration. There's something else. Something else you have to pay, and that price is not the sole consideration. Then transaction value cannot be the valuation. So these two conditions are important, that they should not be related parties and price should be the sole consideration. Then you will go with the transaction value. Now, in this transaction value, what all you have to include and what you have to exclude? You have to include the duties and taxes, service given to render other services. Didn't understand your question, Harshal. Now, what all has to be included? You have to include duties and other taxes other than GST. Other than GST, something is there, you have to add. Interest, late fees, penalty on delayed consideration, you have to add. Then payment incurred by the recipient, right? Payment incurred by the recipient for which supplier is liable to pay, that also has to be added. And price linked subsidy should be added, except in the consideration we saw that if it's the central government and state government, then they will not add. And then any incidental expenses charged by the supplier at the time of supply before delivery, that is any testing charges, transportation charges, any of that other than supply value, if I'm adding, which is incidental expense, then that is also to be included. 5 things has to be included: duties and taxes, interest and any late charges, payment incurred by the recipient on behalf of the supplier, any subsidy other than government linked subsidy, and incidental expenses. These 5 things has to be added to the transaction value. Then what we will exclude? We will exclude deduction of discount, which is any discount before the time of supply, that is deductible from the value, and discount given after supply. If it is agreed at the time of supply, then it is deductible. If it is not agreed, then it is not deductible. Clear? Now, before we proceed, let us understand the circular, which is very important, which says that what is the changes in this, which is very, very critical for us.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in section 15.2, in that point number 4th, a price linked subsidiary other than the given by the government even even subsidy is not linked with the price and get from the uh, private, then this subsidy is not a part of a transaction value, right, sir?
No. If it is not a price link subsidy, so what they've said
And
is what you have to include is price link subsidy other than given by government. So price link subsidy given by the government only is the one thing which is excluded. Other than that, if it is not price link subsidy given by private enterprises, it has to be included.
even it is not linked with a price or a particular product.
Yes, still it has to be included, added up.
Okay, sir.
Now, value of supply, there is a circular which says that what has to be added and what has to be not added. The circular number 251 dated 12 September says that where the full input tax credit is available to the recipient of supply, when the recipient takes the discounted payments to the supplier of goods on account of financial credit note, what will be the whether the full input tax credit is available. Now, supplier has supplied the goods and recipient has taken the goods. Supplier has charged 100 rupees. On 100 rupees, 18 rupees GST is charged. Recipient has taken 18 rupees credit. Right? Now, we said that there is a reduction from the transaction value when there is a discount given. Right? So, he's given a discount provided supplier gives the discount and recipients reverses the input tax credit, because when I sold 100 rupees you took credit of 100 rupees. Now I'm giving you a discount of 10 rupees, so you should claim credit only on 90 rupees, correct? Because I gave you 100 rupees full credit you have taken on. When I give you a credit note, your value is reducing. I will pay less taxes on the 10 rupees to the government, so you should also reverse the credit, correct? Matching system. But the question came whether the full input tax credit should be reversed or no. Here the answer was Section 16(1) of the CGST Act. 16(1) is on input tax credit, which says that provides that every registered person shall be entitled to take credit of input tax charged on any supply of goods or services or both, which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of his business. Right? It has been clarified by the circular number 92 that supplier of goods can issue financial credit note, and in such cases he will not be eligible to reduce his original tax liability, because a credit note can be issued within certain specified time. If you issue within that specified time, it is a valid credit note. But if you issue that credit note later on, then it is not a GST credit note. It will have the feature of a financial or commercial credit note. Okay, it have the characteristics of a financial or commercial credit note, and you will not be eligible to reduce it in your original tax liability, because you are agreeing that I have to give this discount to my customer, but I have not issued within time. Fine, GST I will bear, but to my customer, I have agreed that I will give him the discount. I'm giving him a discount through this financial or commercial credit note. Now, as the transaction value is not allowed to be reduced on account of issuance of financial or commercial credit note, accordingly, the tax charge from the recipient would not get reduced. Thus, it is clarified that recipient will not be required to reverse the input tax credit attributed to the discount provided on the basis of financial or commercial credit note issued by the supplier, as there is no reduction in the original transaction value, and accordingly, the corresponding tax liability will also not get reduced. So that's a clarification which says that in terms of financial credit notes, you do not have to reduce your input tax credit. So that is the clarification on the post discount factor.
It means ki, sir, post discount is an agreement is given. It should be on particular time. after the particular time lapse, post discount is not allowed by the GST provision. Even it is a credit note issued. It means ki not required to the recipient to issue the credit note for taking the for reduce the value. It's not possible. Even credit note is I'm assuming that it is issued by the recipient. It
Credit
is not
note is always issued by the supplier. Credit
supplied.
note cannot be issued by the recipient. Credit note is what I charged you 1 lakh rupees. I have to give you a discount. So the discount is through this credit note.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sorry.
Sir. Right.
Hmm. So credit note has to be given by the supplier. Otherwise, what you have stated is all correct. That credit note has to be issued within that time period. If you don't give within that time period, then that reduction in the transaction value will not happen. So now they've clarified that, okay, I want to give the discount. I'm giving through this commercial credit note. Should the recipient reverse the credit? They're clarifying no, recipient need not reverse the credit. Because supplier also is not reducing his taxable value. So recipient also need not reduce his taxable value. If other than credit note, then reduce in the value is not possible. Not clear, Gayatri. Correct.
In case
You can
I think
reduce the invoice value only through credit note. There is no other document to reduce your value.
in case sir a recipient is issuing the debit note for it, it is
Under
working.
GST law, see, you normally in our accounting terms, we know that I will issue a debit note, you will issue a credit note. So it will get offset. That is our accounting knowledge. In accounting, whatever you do, that is separate. GST law specifically says invoice has to be given by the supplier. Credit note for reduction in value has to be given by the supplier. Debit note to increase the value has to be given by the supplier. All these three documents has to be issued only by the supplier only. Okay. Next clarification is whether a post-sale discount which is offered by a manufacturer to its dealer or distributor would be treated as a consideration paid by the manufacturer for the dealer supply of same goods to the end customer as a monetary value of the inducement to supply goods manufactured by him to the end consumer. So what they're saying is, I have supplied goods and the manufacturer says that I will give you some discount. He's giving discount to the distributor because distributor will ultimately sell it to the customer. Now, would this be treated as a consideration paid by the manufacturer for the dealer's supply of the same goods to the end customer as a monetary value of the inducement to supply? The clarification says Section 231 defines consideration to include the monetary value of any act for the inducement of the supply, whether by the recipient or any other person. So, in cases where there is no agreement between the manufacturer and the end consumer, then there are two independent sale transactions, one from the manufacturer and other from the dealer to the end consumer. Now, since the dealer gave to the end consumer, I am giving him something. Now, will this something what a manufacturer gives to the dealer, will this be treated as a separate consideration is the question. So the essence of the matter is that in a contract of sale, the sale is completed on the transfer of title of goods to the buyer. Once this happens, the buyer becomes the owner of the goods and the seller has no vestige of the title or claims thereof. So the dealer takes ownership of the goods procured from the manufacturer and subsequently sells them to the end consumer. And transaction between the manufacturer to the dealer operates on a principal to principal basis. So this dealer is not my agent. He is an independent person. Manufacturer is an independent person. Manufacturer manufactures it and gives it to the dealer. dealer gives it to the customer. So manufacturer to dealer is on a principal to principal basis. Dealer giving to the customer is a separate principal to principal transaction. The discounts what the manufacturer gives to the dealer or the dealer gives to the customer are simply given for competitive pricing to push sales and merely reduce the sale price of the goods and are not linked to any independent activity rendered to the manufacturer. Therefore, it is clarified that such a discount cannot be included in consideration as a monetary value of the inducement of further supply of those goods. However, in case where the manufacturer has some agreement with an end customer to supply goods at the discounted price, the manufacturer may issue commercial or financial credit note to the dealer, enabling such dealer to provide the goods at the agreed discount rate to the end customer. Therefore, it is clarified that such a post-sale discount given by the manufacturer to the dealer for supplying goods to the end consumer at a discounted rate should be included in the overall consideration as it is an inducement towards the supply of goods by the dealer to the end consumer. So that is the second thing they're saying, that in case the manufacturer gives any discount to the dealer, will that be treated as a consideration? So now what happens? Amazon may the price of the model got dropped. The price got dropped from 10,000 rupees to 8,000 rupees. Now, there are some offline dealers who are buying from Samsung. Now, these dealers like Sangeeta Mobiles, he's a offline dealer. When he bought that itself at 8,000. Now he has to sell at 10,000. Now Samsung told him online the prices has got reduced, so you also reduce and sell. So he said that is a loss to me. So Samsung will tell, don't worry, we'll give you a credit note for this. So you will not suffer any loss. You sell to the customer, even though your price is 8,000 rupees, you reduce it and your sale price is 10,000, you reduce it as 8,000. He's saying my cost itself is 8,000. If I sell at 8,000, I will not make any profit. So he said, okay, you sell at 8,000, we'll give you a credit note for 2,000 rupees that we will give it to you. Now, the 2,000 rupees, the question here is, should it be treated as a consideration or as a discount? So here it is clarified that once I sell the goods, now I'm giving a credit note. That credit note, if I'm giving within time, then it is a normal credit note. But if I'm giving a financial credit note, then he need not consider it for GST input tax reduction. Clear? Therefore, it is clarified that post-sale discount given by the manufacturer to dealer for supplying goods to the end consumer at a discounted rate should be included in the overall consideration, which means this credit note will be treated as a financial credit note. So my supply will be at the actual price, and then it will be treated as an inducement towards the supply of goods by the dealer to the end consumer. Okay. The next clarification is, this one. Whether a post-sale discount extended by a manufacturer dealer can be treated as a consideration in lieu of activities performed to promote the sale. When dealers receive post-sale discounts, they may engage in promotional activities to boost the sale because they're getting discount, right? So they will want to increase their sale. However, these activities ultimately enhance the sale of goods that the dealers themselves own, thereby increasing their own revenue. In this context, the discount merely reduces the sale price of the goods and is not linked to an independent service rendered. So I'm giving you a discount, so my product will go up. So can I tell that it's an additional consideration? But they're saying in the context, the discount merely reduces the sale price of the goods and not an link to any independent service rendered to the manufacturer. Therefore, it is clarified that post-sale discount offered by manufacturers to the dealer in such cases shall not be treated as a consideration for a separate transaction. It is not like they're doing a promotional activity, so I'm paying them. It is simply my sale price I'm reducing. So GST would be leviable in case where a dealer undertakes specific sales promotion. So if he is not taking any specific sales promotion, no impact. But if he's doing some certain activities, some promotional activities, some advertisement campaign, and then I'm saying instead of paying, I'll give you a credit note. In such cases, the dealer provides a distinct service to the supplier and accordingly, GST would be chargeable. When there is an activity coming from the dealer, then it is a separate service. Otherwise, it is not. Clear? Post-supply discount is excluded only if the discount is as per agreement, it is linked to the invoice, and recipient has reversed. Correct, correct, simple. Okay. So now let's get back to our supply. That is 15.2 inclusions, 15.3 exclusions of discount. Discount, if it is given before or at the same time of supply, मतलब आपने इनवॉइस में रिड्यूस किया है, देन इट इज अलाउड. बट आपको इनवॉइस के टाइम पता नहीं है, यू डोंट नो एट द टाइम ऑफ इश्यू ऑफ इनवॉइस हाउ मच डिस्काउंट यू हैव टू गिव. इफ यू आर गिविंग इट लेटर ऑन बट इट इज अग्रीड एट द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई, देन इट इज डिडक्टेबल. So where the transaction is between two unrelated person and price is the sole consideration, then we'll go with the transaction value. Now, five inclusions. These are the five inclusions: price link subsidies, interest, late fees, incidental charges, payment to third party and other taxes, discount, pre-sale discount, post-sale discount, and recipient has to reverse the input tax credit. So let's get into one by one. Any taxes, cess or fees has to be included. So apart from GST, if anything you're added, you have to include it. So if the landlord is charging rent of 1 lakh rupees per month, 1 month he's charging 1 lakh, second 1 lakh, third 1 lakh. When the 12th month comes, no, he's charging 1,20,000. So tenant ask him, why are you charging extra 20,000 rupees, Baba? He's saying, you're staying in my house, and for this house I have to pay municipal tax. So tenant is saying, you are charging me 1 lakh rupees, you're charging me GST. That one tax is sufficient. What is this municipal tax? They're saying no, local government, BBMP, local municipality, they are charging yearly municipal tax, so that I'm including. So he's saying 1,20,000 rupees. The tenant is arguing you should charge GST on only 1 lakh rupees, not on 1,20,000 rupees. So he's come to you as a consultant. So you, as a consultant for this person's fight, you tell me GST should be charged on 1,20,000 or 1 lakh rupees. One lakh 20, correct. Whoever pays the tax curve, how much is he charging? He's charging tax. So one can argue that there cannot be tax on tax, but GST is saying no. Anything what you collect other than GST, any other taxes also has to be included. So on 1,20,000 GST has to be charged is what is saying. So then the question came whether TCS also should be considered. No, they're saying no. TCS should not be considered. TCS is like a advance tax. So that's why you should not include TCS and charge GST on TCS. That is what is the clarification. Then any amount paid by the supplier is liable to be paid. Second addition is what the recipient pays, what the supplier has to pay. Like supplier has to pay to somebody that I have paid. So that also has to be included. Correct. Now I'm constructing a house. I'm constructing and giving the customer. Customer is saying that you do one thing. Cement, you buy from that person, I will pay him directly. So I will charge him less amount. Had I bought the cement myself, I would have charged 1 crore rupees for the house. But since he is giving me the cement, I will charge only 90 lakh rupees. 10 lakh rupees is lost to the government. So that's a government is saying 90 lakh rupees. Then whatever recipient paid to the supplier, that also you add. So 90,000 plus whatever he has paid to on for my work, that also has to be added. Incidental expenses like commission, freight handling charges, inspection, weighment charges, testing charges, all of that has to be added. Interest, late fees that we have discussed, right? Interest, late fees, anything has to be added to the original value. Subsidies linked to the price. As we have discussed this in detail, blanket subsidies are not to be included. Only subsidies directly linked to the price are to be added. But if they are coming from private party, that also has to be added. Subsidy given by the state government is not to be added. Exclusion, discounts before supply or after supply. If it is before supply, there is discount for spot payment, discount on list price. If any of these terminologies comes, you will reduce it from the invoice itself, right? So that has to be reduced. Then discount given after the supply, if it is agreed in terms of supply, and input tax credit on that should be reversed by the recipient. If these two conditions are satisfied, then this discount, post supply discount, also will be reduced. So at the time of supply or before the supply, you should show in the invoice, yes, then discount is not included. If it is not shown in the invoice, then discount has to be included. Post supply, if it is in terms of an agreement and it can be linked to the invoice and proportionate ITC is reversed by the recipient, yes, then discount not to be included. Otherwise, it has to be included. Clear till here? Okay. So that is all on supply. Then other things are fine. So when or do we go to valuation rules? So you have not gone into the valuation rules because you have discussed only the section. When will you go to the valuation rules? When supply is not covered under section 1, that is, those two conditions are not satisfied. When price is the sole consideration or you're buying from related parties. That is, supply covered under section 1, but transaction is between related parties, or supply is covered under section 1, but mandatory adjustments you have not done. In these situations also, you will go to the valuation rules. Otherwise, only the transaction value you will apply. Okay, now we are running short of time, so let's quickly go to the MCQs. Harshal, I'll clarify on your question. I'll go through and just clarify it. Can you post some example of post supply on amendment? Example for post supply on amendment. So there's no amendment as such. Okay, they've given a discount. On the circular, you're saying, Gayatri? Okay. Let me think out because I'm not prepared for that today. The next class, you can ask that. I will share some example for that. Right. So for this first question, yes, most of you have given the correct answer. It is 1000 rupees. Sure, sure, Gar. I'm prepared for an example on that. So cool. Yes, the answer here is correct. It's B. Right. Answer is B again here. Yep. Fifth one, answer is B. Yep. Answer is C, not D. Yep. Correct, Gayatri. Fastest answer. Answer is D. Sure. Any other questions? Think this is what we have to discuss on MCQs. But the amendments, yes, thanks Gayatri again for acknowledging and bringing it on time of supply on reverse charge 31(3)(f) and on the post supply discount. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you,
And
sir.
see you next Friday. Thank you. Yes, sir.